Hey everybody, it's the Dynamite Show Rewind with Paul Fontaine and Jeff Hawkins here on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. I want to thank you all for joining us here on 4th of July Eve. If you're listening on the audio feed, I believe you'll be listening to us on Monday morning. So thank you. I hope you had a great long weekend for those in the United States. And Jeff, we are here for our second straight night to recap an episode of AEW Dynamite. Only this one is from 5.5 years ago, January 8th, 2020, which was, now they called it the anniversary show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure why, because Dynamite started in October. Their first show was in May.
When was the announcement?
The announcement was on January 1st.
Okay, so that's
so it could have been that, but they actually had a show on January 1st, and there was some confusion over this because my memories were that they went dark for 2 straight weeks. One of our loyal listeners also thought
hold on. I thought that they officially became an AEW company after the January 4th show in Tokyo.
That could be. Yeah, you might be right. So then if that's the case, it would be like January 4th, and this would have been the next episode after that. So that makes sense. I should have just looked at my ratings chart because I got it up here. And yeah, there's only the one dark week. December 25th, 2019 is the only week since Dynamite started that they did not air a show. They were back on January 1st, and then this was January 8th. The January 1st episode, I think, may have been taped, and that might have been the confusion because it aired. It was that from Daly's Place, so they may have taped that one. They may not have done it live on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day.
I don't think it matters. I think the anniversary has to do with when AEW became a company.
Okay, fair enough. No, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of whether or not there was a. So that's because I think what was told to us, this was the first live episode since the last one we reviewed, which was December 18th, which, I mean, it's just a coincidence. It's not significant in any way. But this was, I mean, the funny thing is there's this narrative out there that this show was a reset and Tony took over and there were too many cooks in the kitchen and they changed direction and all this stuff. And as I'm watching the show, kind of seemed like pretty much a continuation of what we saw from the December 18th show, more or less. And you're nodding, so
yeah, it was an AEW show. I didn't see any hard reset, but it, like, compared to the other one we watched,
it's way better.
I mean, it's better, but it's not. I mean, there's no like real narrative shift, or there's no.
I mean, we still had the Dark Order, we still had the Nightmare Collective. Way too much Nightmare Collective. Brandy was a serious negative.
Yeah, but I'm a Brandy apologist, and we'll talk about her in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
Here was my framing question for you.
Okay.
Who's better off now than they were at this time?
So
who's on the show?
I
have a list of 4 people.
Okay, so and we're talking this specific show or just this time frame?
This specific show.
Okay, let me have a look and remind myself who was on it. But off the top of my head, Moxley.
You think Moxley is better off now?
Yeah.
Than he was 5 years ago? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll allow you to make
Hangman, maybe. And sounds like you don't agree.
I don't agree with that at all. I think Hangman here this was the beginning of the downturn for him. This whole split with the Elite.
Okay, my list. I've got the list up here.
Well, while you have your list,
no, Statlander's down. Never mind, Statlander's down.
Right.
God, Pentagon, because he got out of there.
I said Penta's on my list. Penta's one of my 4.
Yeah. Kind of almost want to say Jack Perry for the same reason. Mike Santana, because he's out of there.
He's in TNA. I mean, he's getting some love on NXT, but
let me
tell you who I. And
honestly,
also,
I'll die on the Moxley hill, but other than that, I don't know.
Cody.
Oh yeah, Cody. Yeah, of course. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Cody, Penta, MJF, I think is better off than he was 5 years ago. I don't think he is as hot as he could have been.
Was he on the
But
show?
I think,
Oh yeah, he was.
yeah,
Yeah, he did a
he
promo.
cut that.
Yeah,
He cut that quick promo. He was in the middle of the Cody
Yeah.
feud, and
that's true. Yeah,
and I actually, this is gonna be a strange pick, but I think Dustin. is
okay.
in a better
I was
place
gonna
now.
say Dustin. I was
Because
gonna say
he
Dustin.
has such he has almost an unbreakable aura at this point, and he brings such credibility to whatever match or feud he's in that I think he's better off now than, I mean, he doesn't have to prove himself as the aging legend as he was in these early days, kind of. But those are my four.
Okay,
And I think everybody else is worse off. I think Moxley is worse off.
when you want another thing about this was when you looked at, I'm okay. My memories told me the Private Party beat the Young Bucks on that second episode. It was a big upset, and the memories tell me that's the best match Private Party ever had until they beat the Bucks again and won the titles like last year. And basically, it was all downhill for Private Party from there. That was what my memories told me. Well, I've been watching the old Dynamites. I started at episode 1, and I'm into the 5th episode now. I also saw Private Party have a match with the Lucha Bros that Dave Meltzer said was the best match in the history of Dynamite to that point, including the Bucks match. So it was better than the Bucks match. They had a match on this show with Hangman and Kenny Omega that I thought was really good.
And they looked really good in that
They
match.
looked really good in it.
And they were crisp. They were doing double team offense. They were flashy. And
they were over.
What happened to those guys?
And they were over. And what happened to them was Matt Hardy. When I was watching this at the time, another thing in my memory is at the same time, Street Profits were on NXT and they were kind of floundering. And I remember thinking, man, in 5 years, Street Party is going to be one of the best tag teams in this business. Or sorry, Private Party is going to be one of the best tag teams in this business, and Street Party is probably going to be out of wrestling. That was what I was thinking at the time.
I was thinking that Montez was going to be a world champion.
Yeah.
And that they should break him off.
Even 5 years ago? I would say maybe 3 years ago I might have thought that, but
I was very high on Montez Ford early.
Like early? Okay. Injuries didn't help Private Party. John's got a point. That is true.
Right.
Maria Garcia wasn't even there yet. I would say the peak of Daniel Garcia was when he beat Bryan Danielson in that, and that was like 2022.
His peak was when Jericho and Danielson were fighting behind the scenes to get them in their
right, and they were doing the thing where Garcia didn't want to be in the group, and they were like teasing him leaving, and Danielson was trying to convince him. If they had pulled the trigger at that point, and if he had left Jericho at that point, I think he might have ended up being a big star. I don't know. He's okay. Like Garcia's in an okay place for him. He's young. He's had a title.
He's not on this show. It doesn't matter.
He's not on this show, correct? But yeah, the people on this show, there's not a lot. One thing I noticed as well was the last time we watched, they put up Dark results. They didn't do that this time, but they are doing matches on Dark that matter. Like, like they're doing like number one contender matches on Dark. They're setting up feuds on Dark, and Dark was kind of must see at the time in a way. Like if you really wanted to follow what was going on, you kind of had to watch Dark. And I feel
and they were doing some other interesting things. I don't know if they were good or bad, because it's one of those things where it's like AEW wanted to be the company that honored pro wrestling history, but they'd also shove it off to Dark as opposed to doing it on Dynamite because we need our bangers on this show.
Yeah, like they had didn't they have like David Crockett call a show?
Yes.
And they did have Dave Brown.
They had Dave Brown on this other Dark, and I was thinking about looking it up. But
no. You know what? They had him. Okay, so he was on the Dynamite I just watched. It was like episode 5.
No, he was on this Dynamite.
This Dynamite. Watched. Okay, see, I'm getting them mixed up. Yeah, he was on.
Yes, just
one
stop
match.
that.
Sorry,
concentrate on this episode, Paul.
It's hard because I watched them both like within 24 hours of each other. So like my memories are conflated.
Take notes. Stop this.
I know. With that's part of the reason we were late.
But it's one of those things where it's like, yes, we honored the legends. You need to watch our internet YouTube show because we can't possibly just do the thank you for 30 seconds on Dynamite.
Fernando thinks Dark should still be around as developmental. I mean, my instant answer to that is always it is. It's just called ROH now and it's behind a paywall. But I actually do think they should still have Dark. Like, give these people a chance to wrestle, even if they means using Daly's place and taping like 3 months at a time or something like that. Like, just get these guys some work.
I don't, because Tony missed the point of having Dark and Dark Elevation, which was to build people. And instead he just put matches in there. And that's not the point of having a developmental system. It's doing everything in pro wrestling, including promos and things like that and angles.
Yeah, you're kind of right. I mean, there were times, like, remember that dentist office thing they did on Dark? And
yes, they had a few decent things on Dark. I'm not saying everything on Dark was bad, but Tony's thing was, well, we're just going to give them reps. And, and it's like, well, okay, fine. And then they do the thing, oh, he won 5 matches on Dark. Let's put him on Dynamite to lose to somebody decent. And you're just like, well, then why'd we invest all that time in the wins on Dark?
Yeah. So, that we'll talk, as we go through here. We open. I
want to make a point here on the opening.
Okay.
Because it's relevant to something that happened today. As you know, I do a show for Voices of Wrestling.
Yep.
And my buddy Fred came out with an article today on Voices of Wrestling about how people need to stop complaining about the video packages because there's no such thing as these casual fans that you're trying to recruit.
Oh my God.
I am here to and look, I disagree with Fred, but I'm not gonna, it's one of those things where it's like I understand why the sickos don't want video packages, but I loved this video package that recapped everything that happened last week.
Right, because last week was January 1st, and
right,
there's probably a lot of people that missed that show, even though the rating was actually pretty good. But
and they had a decent angle on there with Jericho in the car. And I also, in my notes, I love that the Inner Circle had an LLC. I just find that funny. I find corporations in wrestling funny.
Yeah, like the one where they got an ironclad contract and you can't even get out unless you lose a match. Stuff like that. Yeah.
I sold Tully Blanchard Enterprises to the embassy and now they're the Mogul Embassy. Or remember when Hiro Matsuda bought the Horseman,
or the AEW, the merge of the Hardys and the what was it, the Hardy Moguls or something like that?
No, it was the Hardys and Andrade's crew.
Right, Andrade Family Office.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of
it's just those touches of stupid things.
Yes.
Just like even Jericho saying, "I'll give you 49% of the LLC," meaning he maintains controlling interest. It's such a cool, flaky heel move, and I laugh at the simplicity of wrestling and where it gets into it. And
what, another goofy thing on this show that I loved. Did you catch the value of MJF's ring that he had won?
It was like at $2 or something like that.
It was $45,000 and $2.
And $2 because you had to add in the sales tax or something in there.
I'm thinking it was actually $2 and the 45,000 part is the work. He's got like a cubic zirconium ring.
That's the kind of fake stuff that makes wrestling fun.
Yes, I love that.
And look, I love transferring Heat's comedy. Rent out a studio a few times a week, do multiple tapings, and let someone else book it. Yes, yeah. When we went into the pandemic, I was praying for a studio wrestling show where guys could do 30-second squash matches and 90-second promos. That's all you need to build a decent wrestling company. And then you build the big matches for your big cards, and that's where you give them away.
And your friend Fred will tell you that you're old and nobody
and
I
get that. Look, I
yeah.
I totally get that. I go against a lot of things that Voices of Wrestling people believe, and especially their fans in their Discord who don't love me at all. But it's one of those things where it's like you move forward by going backwards sometimes, and you realize that that this is still a television product. And I sympathize with the people who go, I just watch wrestling to watch bangers and watch wrestling. But again, you're not growing that way, really. You're kind of, it might be modern, but it doesn't mean it's interesting. After a while, you realize good wrestling is just really good choreography.
Yeah, and then some shows are better than others, but
if you have some emotion but don't have any emotion behind it and it's just moves, then people are like,
the big argument I had this week was about last week, and that that thing with Swerve where he was banned from the building and didn't make the save, and I said the announcer should have told us, and it was all like, no,
are you a baby?
You need to be
fed every time. Yeah,
but then there's another argument too, is like they don't want to make it obvious. They don't want to make it obvious. They want the viewer to question it. And my point was, well, if they want the viewer to question it, don't do the angle with the Bucks. Less is more. Have Swerve just not come out, and we don't know why he didn't come out.
Yeah, but then they didn't bring it up the next week either. So
it's not, so it might as well not even happened.
It's not something that they want people to put that's crap that people do. That's the thing that we used to talk about, head. Making up stories in their head to make things that don't make sense make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love this video package, and I love
awesome. Yeah.
That they had Dave Brown in the booth. Now they didn't let Dave do anything because Jim Ross was on his I need to assert myself in this booth that I'm still relevant type.
I think he was starting to feel like Tony was overtaking him, and he was trying to. He was like, "What's the word?" He was like the dog.
Try hard.
He was like the dog, like marking his territory.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, but I mean, Tony was getting praise because Tony was excited about watching the product.
Yeah,
but that didn't necessarily mean that Jim Ross was doing a bad job, but but Jim Ross was doing a subpar job, and Excalibur would blow him away every time he took over play-by-play of a match.
Yeah. So yeah, we opened with Hangman and Kenny against Private Party, and the story was that Hangman and Kenny are like top contenders to the tag team titles. They're part of the Elite, but they don't really get along, and this would kind of take us right through 2020, really, this storyline. But yet Private Party was, the up-and-coming team. They had beaten the Bucks, but then they lost to the Lucha Bros in the tournament, and then they had this match, and as you mentioned, like they were crisp, they were good, they were over. They had a great match with again with Kenny and Hangman. Before Hangman, they did finally a buckshot V-trigger combo, and then Kenny hit the one-winged angel for the pin over, I think it was Quinn. Yeah, Quinn. So yeah, it was a very good match. Again, Private Party was over as hell, and obviously Kenny and, well, like you said, Kenny and Hangman, like the story was about Kenny and Hangman, but you said at the start of the show, like Hangman was starting to lose it, and I think that the idea here was like this was. Eventually Kenny was going to win the world title. Like I think he did by the end of the year.
And then he turned heel though. So it was one of those things where it was just like, it was a complete red herring to have the rift where it seemed like Hangman was on the outs, and then it didn't really do much for Hangman after that. Kenny was very animated in this match. That's what I noted in terms of, playing to the back of the room stuff. But, a few things I did, a few things I noticed. Some I liked, some I didn't. Not Mark Quinn, the other one. The screams.
Oh yeah, Zay. Oh.
Yeah. That thank God he's kind of gone back on that a little bit. I love the weighing in at 24 ounces of vodka cranberry. I laughed at that. I thought that was funny. Yeah, they stopped
Justin's. I should also point out Justin's also already given up on the time calls. So at some point that happened over the Christmas break, I guess.
I misheard on commentary. It was when this young team matures, and I thought they said when this young team tours, they'll get better. I laughed at first. Dave's trying here, but they kind of just told Dave Brown to sit there and watch and kind of just say, man, these guys are really athletic. But he didn't have a lot to say. And JR, even when he had something to say, JR's coming in there like a bulldozer as soon as Dave Brown finishes to remark that, hey, I'm running this booth right now, and I'm going to get us through this match, guys. So everybody hop on and allow me to bulldoze my way through this match. And you're just like, God, give people time to talk a little bit here, JR. I know that you and he'll have his asides in his play-by-play still, and you'll see this. You'll see this as we get later in the show. He gets crankier and crankier
as the show goes on. And there's even there's a spot in there where I watched the Triller feed, so we got the stuff in the commercials, and and we had JR talking about his Moscow mules. So yeah. And he said it's not the first one, it's the third or fourth that gets you. So yeah. Transferring Heat says Dave Brown had to feel like he walked into a different world. That was great. Yeah. And he also pointed out
go ahead.
All I Want for Christmas Is You was the top song on this date, as it is every year on January 8th. And Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker was the top movie. So yeah.
God,
what were you going to say?
Sucked. Dave was trying to, and it was admirable. I think he also had some notes from production. Try and tie in Memphis stuff to this if you can. So I mean, he was trying. It's like, hey, we used to be a tag team territory.
Yeah,
very true. But not a lot.
But these guys are much better. He'd have to say. Much more athletic.
Well, he and Tony both had to put that part over. I kind of want to go back and listen to the Dark that he called. Yeah, just to see if he adds anything there. And working with someone who's a little bit friendly. I think he worked with Excalibur on it, right?
I don't know. I don't think I was watching Dark at the time, so
okay,
it's tough. But yeah, it was fun opener. Very good. I didn't rate it or anything. One thing I wanted to point out too was this came a few days after the Tokyo Dome, and the main event of the Tokyo Dome show of night one. They did 2 nights that year. The main event of night one of Wrestle Kingdom was Kota Ibushi versus Kazuchika Okada, just like last night's Dynamite. Which what an amazing coincidence! Like that we're reviewing this show on this night right after. Yeah, it wasn't our last match, but
we're turning into Brian and Vinny. Wow,
right? Yeah, like they listened to us. Yeah. So we go backstage. This is hilarious. Pac is attacking somebody, and I have no idea who it is. And the announcers are talking about it, and Tony blurts out, "Is that Michael Nakazawa?" Nobody answers them, and they just continue on, and we don't get any graphics. We never see his face. Pac cuts this weird rambling promo into the screen and walks off, and then these whatever they were attend to Nakazawa. And then we go back to the announcers, and then finally Excalibur tells us, oh, that was Kenny's best friend, Michael Nakazawa. Now, I've watched 7 of the first 13 episodes of Dynamite. I don't think they've mentioned once that Kenny and Michael Nakazawa are friends. Now, I haven't watched them all, so it's possible it happened on a show I missed, but they didn't really establish, in my opinion, that Kenny and Michael Nakazawa are friends.
Are you also watching this? Are you watching the supplemental Being the Elite?
No, I am not.
Mentioned it on that too.
No, and that's the thing. That's kind of my point. Is that they expect that this, And obviously there's probably a lot of fans that didn't. And this would come up again and again and again on this show.
Yes, this was the Donnie Darko time where you
Yeah.
needed the website to explain the product.
Yeah, and then you would get your responses on Twitter that were like, watch the product.
Yeah, why aren't you paying attention? Are you a real wrestling fan? Don't you do a podcast? Don't you know anything?
Yeah. You got to watch everything or you can't do a podcast covering the 2-hour show you're covering. So then we got Kris Statlander and Riho for the AEW Women's World Championship. And I believe Kris Statlander had won a number 1 contenders match on the last show we watched.
Yes.
And so she got this title shot here. And they had Brandy was on commentary for this. Brandy, I made some notes here.
There was good Brandy and bad Brandy all on one.
Oh, the stuff about the mimosas was right before this match too. If anybody's going back on Triller and wanting to listen to it. So she says one of the very first things she says is, "I'd rather take a nap than watch this match."
Stat's not really an alien.
Yeah, she's not really an alien. She's just bearing everything. She's bearing both competitors. And I have no idea why, because I don't think she's going to be wrestling anybody. Like, she's just there. And as it turns out, none of her group was either. There was someone that came down with her, and I had no idea who this person was. They called her Mel. I think she might have been on the last show too, but like, again, her name was Mel. Like, yeah. It was Melanie Cruz.
Right. But, and then when they shaved her head, they made her Mel.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they shaved her head on the last show. So they've changed her name since we last saw her. I mean,
much
obviously,
like the Tasmaniac became Taz.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a huge change, but I'm like, who is that? And I was like, at first, for a second, I thought it was Serena Deeb. And it's like, no, she's way bigger than Serena Deeb. The other thing is you had like Kris Statlander, who's supposed to be this monster, and this Mel was way bigger than her. And then you had Awesome Kong out there who was dwarfed Mel. And then you had tiny little Riho as the world champion. It was, so they were having a pretty good match. And then it just fell apart at the end. When you had all the interference. That was
happening. A pure WWE finish.
Yeah. It was a distraction. And you had the ref was checking on Stat. So then Kris dived into her. Then Bryce was checking on Riho. Statlander took Kong out with a dive. Brandy came down from commentary. Then the
production was having a bad time on this match too, because apparently you're supposed to be watching all these competitors watching the match, and they just would do real quick cuts.
Yeah.
So you basically kind of like, okay,
what's going on? Yeah.
Was that disinterested Britt Baker? I just saw him.
Oh, yeah. That was the other one. They had Hikaru Shida and Britt Baker watching from ringside. And every time they cut to Britt, she had her hands crossed and she was like...
She could not have given less.
No. And I swear it was like she was actually into the match until the camera came on her. And then she would put on that face. So it was actually a choice. This wasn't just that she wasn't interested.
Resting Brit face?
Actually, I think Transferring Heat has the ratings up here, and my chart has different numbers. My chart says they did 947,000 and a 0.36. So that is a way different number than what you got there. I don't know where you're getting that, but I've got different numbers, and I've been keeping track of this for a long time. So I will have to check that because my chart might be completely wrong. Or maybe he's looking at NXT. Hang on, let me see what NXT is.
No, he had NXT in the next.
Oh, okay. So he was doing both. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was AEW Dynamite. Oh no. Yeah. Okay. So what is the NXT one? Oh yeah. So the NXT one is right.
721 and 0.19.
I'm gonna have to check this now. Okay. My chart might be completely wrong. Because why would one of his numbers be right and one be wrong? And honestly, to be honest, like my memory is that they were not doing very well in the ratings at this time.
Well, remember this was like the lowest rated.
Oh, you know what? I got the Observer right here.
No, I'm looking at it too. Well, Drew 3,100, the lowest of.
Oh yeah, the crowd wasn't great. South Haven, as John put it. Did you have the ratings there?
The return of
Oh, yeah, here
head-to-head
we
live
go.
shows.
AEW's live show did 967,000 viewers.
947,000 it says in here.
Oh yeah, that mine was January 1st. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, your
over
numbers there,
NXT 721,000,
which is the number that he has.
right?
So yeah, so I think you might be wrong there. Yeah, 947,000 viewers, 0.36. Either that or they were lying to us at the time, and the Torches uncovered some. He says he was wrong. Okay, there we go. He's got the numbers right now.
This women's division was a mess.
Oh my god!
At this time, and they were trying to do kind of the Kenny reset here, because I believe this was when Kenny was running things.
So we didn't mention Luther showed up in this match, and apparently he'd been in some videos for the Nightmare Collective.
He was, and remember he had in our last show, she had said wait or something like that, or not now, and this was now the time to unleash Dr. Luther. Number one, I had no issue with Brandy trying to do something in the women's division. This just wasn't it. This is more her trying to be Skandar Akbar in world class, doing a Devastation Inc. type gimmick. And I just think her being a heel with Cody being a face was a bad choice. But I will always be a Brandy apologist because she gave up a lifetime career in WWE to follow Cody around while he did his indie thing. So
I think making her a heel, was kind of bad. Like,
no, they should have made her likable. People liked her.
Yeah, and she deliberately made herself unlikable.
Yes.
So after the match, oh sorry.
Well, hold on. Well, the other thing, Rio's not my thing.
I like Rio
as a champ. I find See, I think Riho would have been better off not dressing in her Joshi gear. I think AEW needed to kind of establish that the two extremes in women's wrestling needed to find the happy medium of being athletic wrestler as opposed to the weird child fetish of Joshi versus the WWE overly sexualizing things, like
if you remember
Vanessa Bourne.
WWE was getting a lot of criticism for the portrayal of Alexa Bliss, and where she dressed up in schoolgirl outfits and
because she was doing the fiend. She was doing the fiend thing.
And I would point out, what about Riho? And then they would point out, oh, no, you don't understand Joshi.
It's different. It's part of the culture. And Joshi, it's still friggin' creepy. Okay.
And it's still on North American television.
Yes.
So I don't care where it originated. So you're telling me if Alexa Bliss went to Stardom, it would be fine?
Look, Statlander's doing her alien thing, but she's dressed like an athlete.
Yes.
Riho is dressed like she's an 8th grader. And
well, did you notice last time she couldn't talk? And then this time she was actually talking.
Right.
Yeah. So she's learned how to speak in the 3 weeks since we last saw her. So after the match, Awesome Kong attacks Stat. I didn't point out Riho won with a pinfall. It didn't even matter. It was all that interference. The result of the match didn't even matter, even though it was for the world title.
It was a dumb pinfall though, because Stat has her up in a tombstone pile driver, and then she walks over to the ropes so that Kong can grab the leg and trip her. It was the most convoluted, dumb.
And then Riho was apparently supposed to not be able to tell what had happened, even though there's no possible way she could have missed it. And so she was all confused.
She threw her weight behind her legs and somehow tripped up Kris Statlander.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so she won. And then Awesome Kong ran into the ring, laid out Statlander, started mounting her, hit her with forearms, and then Riho tried to save, but Mel grabbed her. So they're beating on these two that just wrestled for the title. Hikaru Shida jumps the rail and goes in to make the save. Britt puts up her hands and said, "To hell with this," and walks away. That's literally what she did. And she was supposed to be a baby face.
And she's been doing that for 5 years now.
Yeah. Well, it was very shortly after this, I believe like a couple weeks later on the Jericho cruise, when she basically turned heel. So, I think they were actually setting up the heel turn. So, it came off like it was stupid, but it actually had a point. And then, so because she had left, we get a couple people run down, and again, I've been watching all these shows. I've never seen these people.
Oh,
One of
really?
them is identified as Big Swole,
Yeah,
and the
Big
other
Swole.
one is Sunny Kiss.
Sunny Kiss,
Yeah,
who I didn't realize was in the women's division. But that's me.
She or he, Sunny doesn't care which one you call her.
Right.
Is basically competed in both divisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I remember matches with Sunny, and I didn't remember Sunny being booked against women. So
that only happened on Dark.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, she definitely was part of that.
Big Swole was the wrong Swole to sign. They should have signed Little Swole.
Yeah. And I believe at the time they were still calling her Ariel Monroe, but they eventually just called her Big Swole.
And then she got into the Britt Baker orbit and eventually was let go, and then called Tony Khan a racist, as I recall.
And her husband, I just saw him tonight on Impact.
Yes,
and he cut a promo bootlicking WWE, talking about how awesome 205 Live was and how much of an honor it was to have John Cena in the front row during his match with Mustafa Ali. It was kind of embarrassing. So I think he's given up on going to AEW. Is my point. We got a video package with super bad Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford.
They never looked better than in this package. It made me excited for Kip Sabian because it's like, okay, he's cool. And then Penelope, her thing was she should have never been. It's the Zelina Vega thing, where once you made her a full-time competitor, the aura of her like jumping off the top rope onto the floor to do her Karanas isn't as impressive.
Which name did you just say?
Penelope Ford.
No, but who are you comparing her to?
Zelina Vega.
Zelina Vega, yeah. I would also use Lita.
When she was managing Andrade and she used to interfere in his matches, she was over like Rover, and then she became
Lita was way more over when she was with the Hardys. And I mean, she eventually got over, but it took a while. And
kind of cool here, and I was like, all right, what happened to that guy?
And then they're like, they had mentioned like he basically stole her in real life from Joey Janela, and that was going to be a feud.
Janela recovered.
I guess. Well, who's he with now? Megan Bain,
Megan Bain.
Yeah, and now they're partners. Megan and Penelope.
Yes.
Yeah, it's weird. Is she still with Kip?
Yes, they're married.
I know sometimes marriages end.
Yeah, she had a couple of miscarriages. Remember?
Oh, okay, but they're still together.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then creepy JR coming in after the video package.
Yeah.
There's something I like about that Penelope Ford.
Yeah, a couple things.
Can't take the WWE out of the guys, huh?
Nope. So then we got a match, and this was a bad match.
Wait, you don't want to do 5 minutes of Zach Myers of Shinedown?
No, let's just skip. He was in the front row. He looked like every other fan. If they hadn't put up a graphic, I would have had no idea. Like I've heard of the band, but I would have never.
I haven't heard of them at all. I was just like, who are these dorks? But okay.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, they only, as far as I knew, it was just the one.
So this next match, we had a 2-week program about a fake botch. Is that what we're doing?
Well, I think it was a real botch that they tried to claim was fake.
Okay.
I think. So it's Christopher Daniels and Sammy Guevara. And the idea was that they showed a highlight, actually. So, I mean, again, like they're showing video packages and highlights and reminding people of what the storyline is.
They're doing basic booking. It's amazing.
Yes. So Daniels had a match with somebody. I can't remember who it was because I didn't write it down in my notes. Do you remember? Probably doesn't really matter. He had the botch, the original again? Botch. Yeah. Penta, right. Yeah, because Penta came out and was taunting him. So Penta, he had a match.
What a babyface he is. Yeah.
Well, I think he was a heel.
He might have been.
I'm almost positive he was a heel. So he comes out and he's taunting Daniels, and the announcers remind us when these two wrestled, Daniels fell off the rope. So the idea is that Daniels is doubting himself and he's old and he may not have it anymore. And this would play into the whole SCU storyline as it turned out. Like this was an ongoing thing. So they had this match and Daniels just botching stuff left, right, and center. And I guess the idea is that he doesn't have it anymore. It just came off like he's no good. And Guevara was just
Okay, let me pause you right here then. If that's
okay.
the story they're telling, then why is he walking to the ring cocky with the ring general thing and SCU? Yeah, why isn't he
I
just
don't know.
kind of like a
Well,
little
did you
gun
see
shy?
the whole thing where he comes out and he does a promo and he's like working the crowd and everything? Like that
Yes.
was okay. You saw that. Okay, so it's weird. And you didn't see the JR stuff.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
he
no,
did.
never mind. I didn't see it. I think I caught
Oh,
the tail end of it.
well, yeah, because this was between the commercials, and then when they came
Yeah.
back, he was in the ring. So he had done his full entrance and he worked the crowd and everything. So yeah, he cut a promo, and yeah, he sounded like, and then when they showed that thing, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember this storyline.
Mhm.
And so the idea was, and then it would play into basically a storyline that would go right through, and I'm sure they had bigger plans for it than what it ended up being. But so
I don't think they
anyways, like
did.
yeah. So the match happened like basically Christopher Daniels was trying for something. He fell. Sammy hit him with a jackknife. Kris kicked out. They're both down. Put Daniels on the top rope, then threw him off. And then he hit a huge rock, or Daniels hit a huge rock bottom. And then that's when Pentagon came out and he was laughing at him. He's like, "Show me your moonsault." And then Guevara just hit him from behind with a knee and got the pin. It was a mess, a complete mess.
Sammy Guevara was never more over than he was as the Tully Blanchard of the Inner Circle.
No,
He was so good
he
in
was
that bad lieutenant role.
fully Spanish God here. A few weeks earlier on the other shows I'm watching, his gimmick, they were actually calling him the best ever. That was his gimmick. Like instead of Spanish God, he was the best ever. Then they tweaked it, and now he's the Spanish God.
And here's
And
where
he's
JR also started going off the rails a bit because somebody mentioned Tony vlogging and
oh
JR's
yeah,
going
and he
and
hated
JR's
that.
talking about how he had shoes that were older than Sammy Guevara.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was brutal. So then the Dark Order come out, and then Evil Uno is basically saying like, if it wasn't for Chris Daniels, I might not be doing this. And he says, but people don't believe in me anymore. And he puts his hand on Chris's shoulder. He said, I want you to hear this. I can make you the man you once were. Then he gave him a mask. And I should point out, so it's Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. They got John Silver and Alex Reynolds with them, who walk to the ring without masks. Then as soon as they get in the ring, they put on their masks.
Right.
There's two other guys who I'm almost positive are not Alan Angels and Preston Vance. I don't think they joined yet. So they're just two random dudes.
Correct.
And so he hands Chris Daniels a mask and he wants him to put it on and join the group. And Chris Daniels teases like he's going to put it on, and then he throws it to the mat, and then he gets beat down by the Dark Order. Scorpio Sky, Frankie Kazarian, and the Young Bucks all run down, make the save, run the Dark Order off. Daniels goes up top, hits the best moonsault ever. Now, they were also talking in this thing about how the Dark Order had been referring to the Exalted One, who is on his way. And, of course, that would end up being Brody Lee. Although, at the time, people were thinking that this was a tease that it was going to be Christopher Daniels was actually going to end up joining the group and be
because
the
of the
leader.
rumor that he was going to be the higher power in WWE at one time.
Correct. And I think that was what we are supposed to think. And then it was, but I believe the idea, it was always going to be Brody Lee.
Well, the whole point of the Dark Order thing and the masks was you take off the masks when you're not in the ring.
Okay.
And then when you go into the ring, you're a supplicant and a number. So you put on the mask kind of thing. I thought that was the original thing.
Unless you're Stu Grayson.
Voice. Well, let's talk about Stu Grayson decided he was going to go 1-on-4 against these baby faces.
Yeah.
And they had to try and justify that. They go, he's just crazy. So he thinks he's going to take on all the baby faces. And then Scorpio Sky decides to do the somersault plancha outside the ring or whatever it was onto all the babies. Yes. And then these valiant baby faces who are doing like a 6-on-1 beatdown allow Kris Daniels to do the best moonsault ever to a tepid pop, I would call it.
Well, because he just spent the last 10 minutes being an old loser.
Yes.
I can't do anything. And now
I think they were expecting, he still got it. And it's like, no, we just had a 2-week program about a botch.
Yeah.
And now you can know how to wrestle again. That's great.
Yeah. So that led into Penta. I don't think he actually left. Actually, no, he did, because they ended up showing him backstage. But he came out, and it was Penta and Rey Fenix, the Lucha Bros, against Cody and Dustin, who at the time were known as the Brotherhood. I didn't remember that tag team name, but it's a good name. And they had a really good match. As you mentioned, Penta. The
Lucha
Rey
Brothers had their boots on, and they weren't bitching about who they were working with.
No, and Cody and Dustin had Arn with them. What were they calling him at the time? Coach, yeah, the coach, Arn Anderson. And so they had a great I wouldn't say great, but a really good match, really good tag team match. 3 of these 4 guys are in WWE now. You'll note that we didn't say that Rey Fenix was better off than he was back then.
That's the fault of
WWE.
Well, that's the fault of them sticking him in that WrestleMania match just to get beat by El Grande Americano, as opposed to like protecting him and just putting somebody else in that match because they wanted a name in there. But my notes are Pentagon is totally in his sports entertainment bag here.
Yeah.
The dance, the glove, the Cerebro, all that stuff. Rey looks motivated here.
Yeah.
Rey looks like
the commentary was putting him over as like one of the best in the world. Already at this point, like 6 years ago.
Props to Excalibur for right as JR's talking about crap that Dusty couldn't do. Say he hit him with the Bathical kick. Like that. And there was a bump here when Phoenix went on the top rope and did a drop kick onto Dustin, where Dustin jumped up like he was 20 and flew backwards on there. And I was amazed at that. I was like, wow, this dude is going to make you look like $1 million even in his mid to late 50s. He's so good. And he's a guy that I hated when I was young. Like, I just thought he was over pushed, like in that
Dustin
early 90s version. And then he went and became Goldust, and I really hated that character a lot because
I gotta say, I always liked Dustin. I always had a soft spot in my heart for Dustin. I don't know why.
I liked him, but it was one of those things where it was like, I thought he was only like in the NWA/WCW. I thought he was only getting pushed because he was Dusty's kid. Well, and he'd be in a team with like Kendall Windham occasionally and be like, but when he teamed with Barry, and when Barry was still kind of svelte, they were awesome and hitting the ropes really hard and things like that. So I did appreciate what I had at the time.
I enjoyed the Dustin and Dusty tag team in WWF too. Like, I kind of like that.
And when he came back, like in the mid '90s and stuff, when they were doing the angle with Dusty for the War Games, I mean, that was fantastic stuff too. When he was teaming with Arn and Arn turned on him, I mean, that stuff was all great too. But as I now watch him, and he has his match and he has his moves, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you just go, he's so good at the little things. And he's so awesome at it. Like even his promos, when he came out and cut that promo with him and Sammy as the Sons of Texas versus the Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah.
He single-handedly made that feud that was nothing into something.
I know. And it could have been more, but obviously MVP wasn't interested in having a good feud. One thing when you talked about who is better off, now than they were then, one thing I was thinking about is who has aged. And if you put these 4 guys in a match today, I think it would look exactly the same. Like, none of these guys have changed at all.
No.
Yeah. And whereas like the Bucks,
I think Cody would work a little safer. Cody was trying.
I'm just talking visually. Like, they look exactly the same. The Bucks look way older now. Private Party looks completely different.
Moxley looks older. Jericho
well,
looks
Moxley
older.
looks different. I wouldn't even say older, just completely different look.
Oh, in the face? I think he
yeah.
looks older.
It could be. Like, he's actually in better shape though. Like, physically,
Yes,
like, yeah.
because he stopped drinking. So
Sammy looks completely different. Like, he looked like he was 12 on this show. And now he looks like he's 20, maybe 25. You know, and he's probably like in his 30s. We didn't see Darby, but I'll bet he looks pretty similar. I would think. Kip doesn't look older. He just looks completely different and nowhere near
he
as
looks
big a
older.
star.
He does.
Penelope looks exactly the same.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's weird how some of these people aged and some of them didn't. But
Statlander looks a little worse for wear.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say older, just worse.
No, like, I think she's not as good a shape as she was here.
Yeah, just not aesthetically. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
She looked more like an athlete. Now she just looks like, I don't know. I don't want to comment.
I don't.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. Let's just move on.
All right. So yeah, the Cody won with the Cody cutter, and then actually he hit the Cody cutter, and then
MJF looks older. That's who I was thinking. MJF looks way older.
Although the funny thing is, on this show when he did his promo sounded the same as it does now. But when we watched that Double or Nothing, his voice sounded different. So his voice has changed between May of 2019 and January of 2020. His voice
it's gotten deeper. It sounds like he's been drinking or something.
Could be
Al Pacino. Like what happened to Al Pacino's voice when he started drinking heavily.
Yeah, there you go. So Dustin hit the final reckoning after Cody hit a Cody cutter. Dustin pinned Ray Phoenix on this, which kind of surprising. I kind of thought the Lucha Bros were going to win, but and then Tony Schiavone got in the ring and he asked Cody for his answer to, and this was the first of the trials of MJF or whatever they called it. And so MJF has Wardlow with him now. I don't remember this from the last show. Maybe MJF was just off that show. But because I hadn't seen Wardlow, like on the ones I'm watching now, like Wardlow's coming, but now he's here and with his man bun that JR made fun of. And so Tony asks him, what's your answer about Maxwell Jacob Friedman's stipulation? So the story was, if you don't remember, they were best friends, even though MJF was a heel and Cody was a babyface. And MJF churned on Cody in his world title match, meaning that Cody could never challenge for the AEW world title again. And now we're setting up an MJF Cody feud, and MJF won't take the match unless Cody goes through these 5 trials. So MJF says, or Arn Anderson actually said to MJF, like, how do you think you have the stroke to lay down these steps? Did someone die and make you God? One thing we know for sure is Cody wants the match, so we're going to talk about it and we'll get back to you. So that was that. Then we got to see Leaping Lanny Poffo as one of the legends of Memphis Wrestling. He didn't really say much, just put over the title of the show. And then they put over that they're going to do the tribute to Memphis on Dark. So I assume that's where you got your Dave Brown on commentary for the whole thing. So if you're looking for that, that would be probably the January 13th, 2020 episode of AEW Dark. It's probably on YouTube. So
yeah, I thought Poffo was interesting. Okay? Remind me of the timetable here because I'm not sure about it.
What do you mean?
Well, let me get it out. When did Poffo have that doomed run as New Japan commentator?
Oh God, it was. I want to say it was around this time, but a little bit earlier.
That's what I was thinking too, and that's why I thought he was thinking. And I want to be as involved in this, kind of a thing. I'm just going, oh brother.
It was a year earlier. And he was supposed to replace Don Callis.
Yes. And he was terrible.
Oh, he was beyond terrible. I watched it all.
So he was trying to kind of get in AEW's good graces on for a commentary gig here, but I liked that Austin Idol never ages.
He was there too. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where
it's Boogie Woogie Man, right? Jimmy Valiant.
Yeah, Jimmy he's known as Handsome Jimmy in Memphis. He was only the Boogie Woogie Man in Crockett, I believe. But
I think JR called him Boogie Woogie, didn't he?
He did because JR knows him from Crockett.
Right. Okay.
mostly. Okay. So it's one of those things where it's like, I like these, but I just remember being so mad at Tony because it wasn't that long ago. They were in, I think, Tupelo, and FTR goes, "Oh, Dennis Condrey's in the audience," and we never showed Dennis Condrey, and until like it was like on like I think Collision. I think they showed him.
Well, yeah, they just showed him. Like
I was so mad at that. I was like, "Damn it! I want to see Dennis Condrey."
And Rock and Roll was there as well. R&R.
Yes.
Yeah, they put them. Yeah, and now did they get laid out on this show?
No.
Okay. Again,
I don't think so.
On the episode, it was either 4 or 5. They were on that show, and they got powerbombed through a table by Santana and Ortiz.
I don't think Robert Gibson was in Memphis with Ricky. I thought Ricky was just a young prelim guy who he would team with Jeff Jarrett occasionally.
Oh, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Look, I'm trying to fight off Alzheimer's, so I'm trying to remember.
But I think Ricky and Robert have been on 3 shows of the first 13, which is more than a lot of the signed talent have been on, which is interesting. So then we go to break, we come back, and MJF's in the ring now with Wardlow, and he gives Cody till the count of 10 to come out here and face him. The announcers say that they're not even sure if Cody is there, even though he just wrestled. That was weird. And then so he doesn't come out, and MJF calls him a bitch, but instead out comes DDP. And he does a 5-minute promo about himself and DDP yoga and all his career and everything. While he's doing it, MJF is scrolling his phone in the corner. That I like that. That's a good heel move. So he just lets him go on and on. At one point, I think it was Excalibur asked, like, is he paying for this airtime? And I'm thinking, no, he's not getting paid to be on the show. It's like a timeshare. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not going to pay you, but you can plug your DDP yoga if you want. Because man, that's all he did.
And called him a jerk off. What do
you call him? It was Motormouth Jerk Off Friedman.
Motormouth Jerk Off Frida. And it was mostly about the rebranding of DDP Yoga. It's now DDPY.
DDPY. And then did it end up becoming YRG it used to after that?
No, YRG was the first name of it.
Oh, okay.
Yoga for regular guys or something like that.
So now it's DDPY. Okay.
Yes. Now
my wife's
it's all
been bugging
about
me
his
to get
brand.
into that.
It's actually pretty good. I've done it before. It helped me get into shape, and I did that along with P90X, and I was in the best shape of my life.
I'm only going to do it if Dally will give me send me a letter when I graduate.
I'll tell you about DDP. He never got to the point where I loved him as much as I loved him in the AWA as a manager, even in WCW, when he would do the good God,
I kind of liked him when he was like the friend of the stars in WCW. That was probably my favorite DDP, but I did like the AWA version as well with the Diamond.
I liked him as a manager, even though he is managing, like, he had Kurt Hennig in there for a short time.
He had bad company, and
it was mostly Pat. That's what I was gonna say. It was mostly Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond, and Paul Diamond's not small, but DDP's like 6'7", so he's towering over his charges and stuff.
Yeah, it was fun.
Pat Tanaka's like 5'8", so
and talking for them. So like, it's like, what are they even here for? You're better. You're bigger than them. You're better than them, and you talk better than them. And
he needed to talk for them for the most part, because Boric was Canadian, and just, he had that. He couldn't really get him mad. He was like almost Minnesota nice in terms
Diamond
of his
is Canadian.
No. Paul Diamond, Tom Boric.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
He played, or he was Croatian. I believe he's like, his family's Croatian, but he's from Canada, I believe.
Yeah, there's a lot of Croatians.
He played soccer at a college near me called Old Dominion University. He was a goalie there.
Learn something new.
And Pat Tanaka. Look, you watch Tanaka and Diamond try and cut promos in Memphis. It's hit or miss, and it's mostly miss. So DDP being their heater was a good thing. They're a great tag team, but they needed somebody to talk for them.
Only reason to watch AWA during that period, Transferring Heat says. So eventually MJF gets sick of listening to him, and he tells DDP, "You couldn't lace your boots in my prime, but now with those arthritic hands, you can't even hold my jock." Page got in his face, and he said, he actually had a line in here at one point too, where he says, "Oh no, that was later." So he said, Page gets his face. MJF says he doesn't want to fight, but these guys might, and in come Butcher, Blade, and the Bunny. And then MJF keeps going. He says, "I know you're getting senile. WCW is dead, and dead is the average age of your fans, coincidentally." And he says, "You're in a bit of predicament here. You got two options. You can kiss my ring and get out of my company, or, and I kind of prefer this one, I can send you straight to hospice. Then I can take one of your diamond daughters, lay her down real nice in your bed, and we're going to do one thing and one thing only, and that's wow."
I knew where this was going, and I started my sphincter started to pucker up.
Yeah.
I just go, "Oh God, this is the bed."
And one of the Diamond Daughters got hired after this.
Yes,
Lexi Nair. And so DDP shoves him, and then he hits a diamond cutter on Butcher, and another Blade gets the better of him, but then DDP lays him out. And MJF interfered, shoved him away. Page was about to attack him. Then he runs into Wardlow. And then Max kicks him in the nuts. And Wardlow and Wardlow and Ali dropped DDP. And QT Marshall and Dustin made the save. So no Cody at all.
JR doing that, the Bunny, if that is your real name.
Well, yeah, and I just called her Ali. So
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of Butcher and Blade?
Okay, I think Blade was cut, but I could be wrong. And I think Butcher's injured.
No, I was asking, what did you think of them?
Oh, like in this segment or in general?
No, in general.
In general, I thought they were a good team, like a good like jobber team that, has a little bit of credibility, but basically you can put over a babyface tag team with them.
Yeah, Les Thatcher, because I used to listen to his show with Vic Sosa on F4W all the time, would always put over Pepper Parks, who
with Blade.
It's a lot. And I just remember him being very tough. I always thought, I thought Butcher could be something, and he hit that
probably about 5 years too old.
Probably, but he was also in the wrong company.
Yeah, maybe
because the monocle thing was awesome. He was big, he had size, and he hit that Wardlow ceiling. Hobbs has hit it as well, where you get big guys, and then Tony wants his star ratings.
Well, he'll always have the record for most eliminations in battle royals. Well, not always. Yes. I'm sure at some point somebody will break it, but right now he has it. He's always in these battle royals, and he's always throwing people out. So.
But I dug the shaggy, like older look with the monocle and stuff.
Blade looked great. Awesome. Like Blade, Blade
always looked like $1 million, but he was always like about 3 shades too dark. Everybody else.
You know who these guys remind me of a little bit is a guy I saw tonight, Jake something. Every time I see that guy, I'm like, how is he not a big star in a major company? He looks like $1 million. He's a good wrestler, and it's just his name is awful. So, I mean, I guess he's got a lot in common with these guys because Butcher and Blade.
And I think they needed better double team moves is what they needed. They needed Parks to be the small, quick guy, and they needed the Butcher to be the power guy, and they needed to set up some things.
They needed something like a Doomsday, but not a Doomsday, like something like that, or a Heart Attack, or, something where, Blade can use his speed and Butcher can use his strength, and And they just never, part of the problem, too, is that they never really featured them enough to where they could get over. Like they would disappear for months on end. And I think that was because Butcher had his music as well, right? So he would disappear and then Blade would just
but they'd also get mixed up in like multi-tag team stables for some reason. They'd be like the second
they were
in there.
They were in the Hardy family office forever, and I think they were in
they were joiners. They were kind of like those B villains that joined every single supervillain group.
I feel like they might have been in MJF's group at one point, just like as hired guns.
No, MJF hired them at one point.
Well, here, I think.
Oh, here too. Yeah, he hired them a couple times.
Mm-hmm. And then every time they would do it, you were just expected to remember, oh yeah, they got a long-standing relationship. Transferring Heat says Jake something is in the same vein as above average Mike Saunders. Stupid name. I liked above average Mike Saunders.
I do too.
One of my guilty pleasures of
Nice guy too.
Dying days of WCW. I wish he would have made it, but it's a good promo.
Comedy. Yeah, no, he was actually a pretty decent stand-up too.
Oh, okay. Then we got I guess this group was called the Gentleman's Club. I didn't remember that, but it was Chuck Taylor and Trent, who are the best friends, and Orange Cassidy against the Jurassic Express, which of course was Jungle Boy, Jack Perry. Well, at the time he was just Jungle Boy, except JR was the only one that would call him Jack Perry.
God, he wanted that to happen.
Jungle Boy Jack, Jungle Boy Perry. Like, he just wouldn't stop. Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt. And my God. The only thing that I can take away from this match is I can't believe Marco Stunt was ever on national television as a wrestler. Like, he was over as hell in this match. We talked about this last night because he was in his backyard of his hometown. Like, I know it wasn't exactly his hometown, and they mentioned that, but he was close to his hometown. So he had people chanting for Marco, but he would get in there and he would dance and he'd pound his chest. And he would like act like he was going to fight, and then he'd back off and he'd dance some more. And then eventually the heel would get him, and then he'd just get killed. And at one point he's in there with Trent Beretta, and Trent Beretta looked like Andre the Giant next to him. And Trent's not a small guy, but I mean, he's not.
Trent's sneaky tall.
He is, but he looked like he was.
Well, he looks like this is but this is also in his. He looks like the Young Bucks' dad phase.
A little bit, yeah. And of course, Marco Stunt looks like a 9-year-old.
His problem was the same as the Penelope Ford thing. He was great at like a couple of spots here and there, but he should have never been a full-time wrestler.
No, yeah, that was the thing. And I mean, the most memorable thing ever, I think, was that one time he had a match with Lance Archer in the pandemic era, and Lance threw him into like the 9th row. Legit.
Yes. It was so great. I howled at that.
And I'm pretty sure that might have ended his career, like indirectly. But yeah, so this was like, I watched this match, but I couldn't take it seriously. And
no, yeah. And it was Jack Perry's first win in AEW.
Yeah, they went through because that was the whole thing, right? They had like Jack Perry had this long losing streak, and then he got a win, but he never had a singles win. And then eventually he was feuding with Jericho. And actually, it wasn't much after this. I think it was like a couple weeks later where he had a match with Jericho, and he lasted 10 minutes or something, and then he got a title shot. Was it? Because he was still and this was before, and Moxley was going to win the title like a month and a half after this. So it was
this is the vortex of Jericho when he was having matches with like Orange Cassidy. Get the kid over.
And so whenever anybody tells you that Jericho never got anyone over, they will come back at you and say, oh no, look at Jack Perry. Like he's over because of Jericho. It's got nothing to do with the 19,000 pushes they gave him.
That's like people saying that Blake Christian's getting over because he's having bangers but still losing on TV.
Well, I've even heard, Jericho got MJF over. Like MJF was earmarked for the top guy in the company from day
Cody
one.
Got MJF over. Shut up.
Yeah, no, it was Jericho.
Although, shout out to Excalibur for the 2009 PWG name drop of Men of Low Moral Fiber.
Yes. He got Darby over. He got Orange Cassidy over. Jericho is like he's the magnanimous prince. I'm just telling you what I'm told. Anyways, as you mentioned, Jack Perry got the win when he hit a Hurricane Rana on Chuck Taylor at the end. And I mean, you can go back and watch this if you want. I think I probably fell asleep at some point in this match. It went through a break. It was very long. And they point out, and now I want to watch next week's show, and I will eventually, but next week, Diamond Dallas Page is going to be wrestling on the show in a trios match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we got Chris Jericho. So that was actually the main event in terms of in-ring action. And so they hype up the next segment, which is going to be Jon Moxley is going to answer Chris Jericho's offer to join the Inner Circle. And you'll recall last week, Chris Jericho gave him a car, or he stole the car. I'm not exactly sure what happened.
Can I cut you off here for a second?
You can.
I recall people being very angry that this was the main event segment. And it felt like something that would happen in Stamford.
I had people tell me when I told them we were reviewing this show that it was a 2-hour monologue with Jericho and Mox, and there was no wrestling on the show. That's what I was told.
I loved this angle. I loved it.
Great.
I thought this was so fantastic.
This was perfect professional wrestling.
And it was the best swerve I think I've seen AEW do.
Well, no, I think the best one was MJF and the Pinnacle, but this was right up there.
Actually, you're probably right, even though the Pinnacle never became anything. You're probably
right. And I mean
the setup for it was fantastic.
Yeah. So last week they showed the thing at the beginning of the show. Chris Jericho offered Jon Moxley a spot in the Inner Circle, gave him a car. Now Jericho comes out and he's got Guevara and Jake Hager. No Santana Ortiz. I'm not exactly sure why they weren't there. But maybe they're already having problems with the Inner Circle. I don't know. But he gives Mox an intro and he comes out. And you know another thing where my memory has failed me? I thought that Jon Moxley has always come through the crowd in AEW. And that stems back from WWE when he came in through the crowd with the Shield.
You're also thinking his intro for AEW was him coming through the crowd and then attacking Kenny on top of this stack.
Right, which I was there for. And in my mind, I thought, oh, that just kept going to now. And even when he was in the Blackpool Combat Club, he came in through the crowd. But no, here he was coming in through the heel tunnel. But I should point out, I think he was still in the heel tunnel at this point. But so he comes out and Jericho puts him over as his friend and his protege. He said, this is an important day in Memphis, and it's not because it's Elvis Presley's birthday, because Elvis was an ass, and I'd kick his ass. Beatles were better. It's because Jon Moxley is going to join my Inner Circle. He asked him how your car is. He said, he pointed out Ortiz and Santana are holding down the club because they're going to have a party all night, and no fans are invited, so they're just there holding the club. He asked Mox, are you going to be part of the Inner Circle? And John says, I've had a lot of time to think about this, and there's more that went into this decision than you might think. You might think you know what makes me tick, but the truth is you don't. And I don't think, he said, nobody knows, and I don't think you do either. He says, you offered me car, money, 49% of the Inner Circle. I don't want any of it. I didn't come here because somebody backed up a truck full of money to my house. I can't be bought. I came to run roughshod over professional wrestling. I came to dominate. And that's why my answer is yes. And the crowd gasps. Jon Moxley takes off his jacket. He's wearing an Inner Circle t-shirt. And I'm like, I saw this when it happened. And I'm still watching this now. And I'm like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And he's palling around with Chris Jericho. And this is when Chris Jericho had his little bit of the bubbly. So, they break open some bubbly. And Jericho's gloating. He says, I told you so. And Mox says, if you want to be great, you have to learn from the greats. And the P-brains out there might not be able to admit it. But the fact is, Chris Jericho is the greatest of all time. I'll stand with him. I'll surround myself with greatness, and we'll dominate AEW for years to come. So there's only one thing left to do. And he looks at Jericho and smiles, and they're like, pop open the bubbly. And they go and they pop open the champagne, and fans are chanting, you sold out. Like, they're completely buying this. It was, like you said, it was brilliant. Then Y2J goes on. He says, 2020 is going to be the year of the Inner Circle, and we're going to spray bubbly all over the ring. Chris asks for his music to play. Judas plays. Moxley hugs Jake Hager. They're celebrating. Jericho says, it's the beginning of the Inner Circle taking over AEW, so you can all shut up and watch us do it. And then he tells some fan says, you suck. And Chris says, you suck. And John says, you got a problem with him. You got a problem with me. And then Mox, he just says, oh, Chris, by the way, I forgot something. And Jericho says, oh, yeah, I owe you a little something. And he grabs the car keys and he gives them to John. And he says, you know how much this car is worth, right? And he gives him the keys. And again, the fans start chanting, you sold out. And Moxley gets on the mic and he says, I was going to run my 2015 Dodge Ram until the wheels fell off till I got the gift to Jericho. And then Y2J says, these fans are saying you sold out. Yeah, you did sell out. All these shows. We won our matches at the Tokyo Dome. We're together now in AEW. Hit the music. And the music starts playing. Jericho's spraying bubbly. Sammy and Jake leave. And Jon says, "Oh, cut the music. I forgot one more thing." And Jericho says, "What's that?" Mox says, "I was just kidding. I'm not joining your stupid group." And he picks him, DDTs him, hits him over the head with a champagne bottle.
It went on so long to hook people, and then he just the nonchalant. There wasn't even any.
No.
Like Jericho will put in that pro wrestling flair of, and then that kind of thing. And Moxley just has no compunction. I lied.
Yeah. And then he had to say, "I'm not joining your stupid group." That was the capper. That was like, I don't know. There's another line like that. Oh, it reminds me of when Hangman says, "Dumbass." Like, it's just the same kind of delivery, like just so dismissive. And Jericho was so hurt. And so he hits him with the paradigm shift. Then he laid out Guevara and took off with the car keys. And that's it. So, yeah, he got a car and he laid out the champ. And this was all leading to Revolution, where he was going to win the AEW World title. It was great. Transferring Heat has a question. He wants to know if the show felt like it had more of a show-long thread compared to the current AEW. I don't think so. I honestly didn't even remember the Jericho Moxley thing was going to happen until it actually happened. So it's not like they did anything throughout the show to build to it.
No, this was still in the time when people had certain fiefdoms, I think. And here's your segment, here's your segment, here's your segment. It still feels like a very disjointed company to me.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, and there was, and the other thing is they were at the stage where they're doing like 4 pay-per-views a year, and we're like right in the middle of between Revolution and Full Gear and Revolution, and the time frame between Full Gear and Revolution is like 3.5 months. So we're like right in the middle of that. So it's not like this is like basically the start of Jericho Moxley. There's nothing else. Well, they're obviously building Cody and MJF. So it's more, you know what I would say, Transferring Heat? It's more like we jumped into the middle of a bunch of continuing storylines. But I'm very confident that if we watch next week, we will see these storylines continued. Whereas now, unless you're in like the last 2 weeks before pay-per-view, it's like you don't know what you're getting week to week, a lot of times. So in that sense, I think, they're not necessarily show-line storylines, but they're storylines that continue from show to show to show, if that makes sense. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, this angle was great. This is one that people remember, to this day. Although, again, like I said, when it happened, like I knew he wasn't going to join, and I knew, like, I kind of in the back of my head knew that he kind of did the fake out, but I didn't remember how good it was. Like watching it, and especially like when it ended, it was like just so sudden.
I kind of miss fun Moxley.
Yeah.
Everything's been so dark with him, and you're just kind of like, ugh.
That kind of started with Regal, like with the BCC, and then kind of went to another level with the Death Riders. And then the personal, like, real life stuff too, kind of plays into his character. And so it's kind of hard for him to be fun at this point.
Right.
He's kind of a dry drunk now. Is that nice to say? Probably not. But yeah. So yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And like, honestly, like the whole thing, like the Bucks are fun. If you like that.
I don't find them that fun. I find them
Osprey's fun.
Yeah, but they're all doing no, it's not fun because they're doing corporate politics and stuff, and you're just like, that's not fun. That's not wrestling to me.
So you like this, like the kind of the goofy,
yes,
where we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Well, you can take yourself seriously, but I mean, just like stop intertwining it with almost the real life story of the company, kind of a thing. Like the Horsemen were goofy, but they could be serious at times too. But like, some of their angles against Dusty and stuff were still fun.
Back then, they kind of had nothing to lose. You know what I mean? Like they were just out there, and they were a new company, and they were doing way better than anybody thought they would ever do.
And they were trying to be all things to all people, though. That was the thing for me.
But I mean, like they're drawing. Like you look at the numbers they were drawing. Like Transferring Heat put them up earlier. Like almost 1 million viewers. 0.36 in the demo.
They weren't drawing live though. This one only had 3,100 people there.
True, and that's usually the first sign, right? And honestly, if you and then it's unfair to like say how things went in 2020 because I mean this is the other thing. I didn't mention this, but as the show's going on, they're doing the on sale dates that are coming up. And one of them was March 18th in Newark. And it's like, oh, that show's not happening. And and it was like, oh man, these poor fuckers, they don't know what they're in for. What's coming next. And COVID was out there, but it wasn't anything we were terribly concerned with, although week to week it would get more and more as it came closer. But so if people, the next time we do this, don't make us watch a empty arena show, please.
No.
I mean, maybe the Brody Lee show. Well, I guess there were fans there. Like those ones with fans at the Daly's place, they're not too bad, I guess. The ones I never want to see again are those ones from QT's gym. I appreciated them at the time because they were so much better than what WWE was doing, but I never want to see those again.
A Thunderdome show with the Golden Role Models. That's the only empty arena show I will watch.
Really? And only their segment?
Maybe Asuka being crazy. But that, yes.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so hard to watch. Like sometimes they'll air video packages and you'll see that stuff, and it's like, oh man, I don't ever want to see that again. So yeah. Transferring Heat almost picked the Jade Cargill debut. Well, we're $8 into the next one, so $17 more, and we'll do another one of these.
You mean debut match or debut?
Well,
because wasn't that the Shaq match?
Yes, that would be fun to watch, and that is an empty arena one. But I mean, there were fans there, but that was the one where he went into the ambulance.
Red Velvet MVP.
Debut promo or her debut promo.
Debut promo. Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't say. Well, she wasn't here, but I don't know if she's better off now than she was then. It's hard to say. Maybe. Actually, that's a way to set off people in that in your other group. Tell them that Jade Cargill is a bigger star now than she was in AEW. They don't like that.
She is.
They don't like that. Make that point in the Discord,
and they'll protect her weaknesses a little bit better. They do.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like she's any good, but she is.
No, but she was in there with Asuka, and you don't have to be that good to be in there.
Exactly. And she is a big star, regardless of whether or not you think she's having bangers. That music hits. She does her pose. People pop.
More people know WWE than AEW.
Dirty little secret. All right, so that's going to do it. We did almost our regular full time, which is good. I enjoyed this. Thanks, Transferring Heat, for picking this show. But if the next one we do is from like a different year, I'd be cool with that too. I had a hard time finding this show. The way that Triller lists their thing, the stuff at the beginning of the year is way at the bottom, and as I was scrolling down, you get to like July, and then it says more. So then I'm going down. I get to March, and it says more. February, January. I get to January 29th, and then I go down one more, and then the next one is July 8th, and it just starts cycling again. So eventually, I had to type in January 8th, 2020, episode 220 into the search bar, and that's how I ended up finding it. It took me like 15 minutes.
I went to Max. It took me 5 minutes.
Oh, see, I don't have Max, so, unfortunately. So, happy 4th of July to you too, Matt. Transferring Heat. I'm in Canada, so we already had our July 1st. So tomorrow's just gonna be Friday.
I'm heading out to Phoenix tomorrow.
I don't know if do you want to do your plugs again? You already did them last night.
Yeah, because this is a timeless show. Shake Them Ropes on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. Myself and Chris Novembrino do a lighthearted yet somewhat snarky take on the week's American wrestling. We do what we call the lazy river of wrestling criticism. Whatever we watched, whatever we had time for, we bring it up. We have Vader Club, where we both pick a match that we really liked because sometimes the American wrestling is lacking. So yeah, and it drops usually Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday. It's later in the week so that we can get to all the wrestling if we have time.
All right. And I will have the takedown with Garrett Gonzalez on Monday. If you're listening on audio, it'll probably be up later today. And then we throw clips up throughout the week of the different things we talked about on the show. So whatever happens this coming weekend, that's what we'll talk about on Monday. Might be a dead week because of the July 4th holiday. Who knows? And then Jeff and I will be back for my last show in studio for a couple weeks, but I will bring my stuff with me and I'll continue doing the show on the road. Could be some interesting shows. Probably won't be as long as the usual ones, but they'll be fun. And Jeff's going to clue me in on what I missed on social media throughout the week. Or not. So
it might be fun not to, because like my other co-host has no idea what's going on social media, so he's very blissful. He enjoys it.
So he just watches the shows.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going to try to do. So I'm going to stay out of the Discord. I'm going to stay off X and see if my experience watching is any different. We'll see. So for Jeff Hawkins, I've been Paul Fontaine, and this has been the Dynamite Show Rewind.